see what I did there?
Yeah, I see what you did there. At first, I was like, "Wait, did you spring for a whole new intro for us?" And then it hit me what it was. Oh, it hit me what it was.
Oh, I mean, all right. So you know what? I always kick it off, Richard. We're here. It's only like the second week in 2022,
Eh,
and
Should
Betty White
should be
lived a
our
long.
should be our off week.
Should be our off week. We should be reclined or whatever we do to enjoy our free time on a Monday night to really get ready. Because you ever think about that before we start the podcast? Sunday you do the things you need to do for the week. Monday you don't do shit so you can get ready for the week like mentally,
Mhm.
like recline or something like that. But you and I do podcasts often, so. But second week of the year, what's going on, man? It's just like out of nowhere. I can't. I don't get it.
Yeah, and out of nowhere is a great way to describe it because clearly, yeah, I have been waiting for the other shoe to drop in the last 24 hours now, of like, oh, he was out partying, oh, he had an underlying condition, like when
Yeah.
we were shocked by Norm Macdonald, it wasn't long
Yeah.
before we heard, oh, he had been really sick for a long time, and
Yeah.
this everything we're seeing so far, 24 hours in, it's just a total, yeah, tragedy, yeah,
Yes.
unexpected
We
rather.
total tragedy. We have lost Bob Saget, and like Richard said, I mean, and one of the things that keeps popping up is that I think his last tweet was at like 3:49 a.m. on the day he died. He had just wrapped up a show that's kicking off a tour. Apparently, he was very excited to get back on the road and do what he loves to do. And from what I'm reading, like 12 hours later, they found him
Yeah, crazy.
unresponsive, deceased. The details are coming out: left hand over his chest. So we can imagine, we can all paint the picture there. But it's different, right? Like, and you and I said it last week. Betty White, you lived a long, great life. You were literally almost 100 years old. 65 is young these days. Out of nowhere, he was performing the night before, ready to kick off tour. Rest in peace, Bob Saget.
Yeah, I mean that's it. That's it. That's the end of our that's the end of our podcast because really, uh, but yeah, these things hit us from like I'm just going to repeat what Ryan just said. Betty White. Okay, and okay.
No disrespect.
No, but
Yeah, exactly.
so I was blanking on Sidney Poitier's name.
Oh,
Sidney
and Sidney
Poitier.
Poitier. Yeah,
Yeah, like okay. An infamous person, Robert Durst, who, if you don't know, he's this really creepy looking. If you Google Robert Durst, he's this really creepy looking guy because the only photos you've ever seen of him are in a courtroom because he was a New York real estate guy who's been accused of killing his first wife.
That, yeah,
yeah, like he died at 8. Like again, with all due respect to anyone, like when you start to hear numbers in the 80s, you're not surprised. And as a colleague today said, like 65 hits you because it's young, but also, and and again, I usually laugh at terms like this, but people say the blank is the new blank, but 65 really is the new 55.
It is.
It really is, and because this people are having their kids at 35, 36. They're having kids into their early 40s now, like as a norm, not just as like a random thing, and yeah, they're so yeah, you can be 65 and have a 30-year-old kid, have a 25-year-old kid. It's not that crazy, whereas in my life, like, yeah, people are old at and it's just tough because it's like, for me, like, nope, that's that's 16 years from now, that's 7, like, that's not a long time at all, and I'm 65, so
my dad always gets, I don't want to say scared, but when things like this happen, he freaks out a little bit, like for a day or two. My former football coach was about the same age as my dad, so I guess 65, or he would be 65 today. Lay down and take a nap before a football game, had a heart attack, died in his sleep. Passed very peacefully, but I remember my dad was like, I'm his age.
yeah,
Same
right,
thing.
right.
Bob Saget, my dad is Bob Saget's age, 65. Bob Saget's still out there doing. Oh, real quick, before we go deep diving into remembering Bob Saget, I don't know what they injected to the cast of Full House. All of them look phenomenal. John Stamos, the girls, Uncle Joey. I always forget his name. I do apologize. his real name rather. But they all look great. Bob looked like he was great, ready to get back out there. Didn't look like
Yeah.
he was sucked dry or anything, but he was ready to do it. But I texted Richard today. I was like, I'm having trouble processing this one, and it's not like I followed Bob Saget's comedy or his stand up or anything like that. But Richard and I often on the podcast and off the podcast talk about childhood and comic books and movies and things like that. Well, for me, Full House, it was the reruns after school every single day, and it's just kind of hard to explain, right? It's not conscious, it's more subconscious. Here he is, all of a sudden he passed away, and I'm just like, I actually said this to my daughter last night. I texted my daughter Alexis. I said, this is my childhood, and I sent the article. And I always think back to the line in The Cable Guy. Do you remember where he's on he's on the satellite or whatever?
Yeah.
Or
I don't quite remember the line, but I'll remember when you tell me.
he says somebody has to kill the babysitter, right? And I'm not saying my parents neglected me, but I just don't think children these days will be able to connect with characters the way we did. And I actually think it's kind of unfortunate, but that's where I'm at. Bob Saget, America's Funniest Home Videos, Full House, The American Dad has passed. And I'm kind of just like, I'm still processing this.
Sure. And I think that's right. I think, as in our pop culture discussions, we often, you're like, oh, we got to be careful of hero worship, or, oh, again, it's really hard to have a hero today because we learn so much about people.
Yeah.
And that's what caused me when I heard the news yesterday to be like, oh, man, I don't want to hear that I don't want to hear that he was in, we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but there's this sappy Danny Tanner, America's Funniest Home Video side of which most of the nation that's how they got to know Bob Saget. But then you take 2 seconds and go down the rabbit hole of Bob Saget, and it's filth. It is, and then he really, really enjoyed doing that. Like, he made tons of cameos in movies. I sent Ryan an Entourage cameo he did earlier, where he just talks about doing drugs, getting laid, like he's just. Again, it was
he's an animal in that scene.
Yeah, he's an animal. He's phenomenal in that scene. Yeah. And then if you've ever seen in Half Baked, when there's a phenomenal thing he said he'll do in order for cocaine. He's done tons of great things like that, and it blurs that line of like in my mind going like, wait, is he that? Which guy is he? And if you just take a second today and flip through Twitter, or Google people's words for him, it's just. He is, he's coming across really well, like perfect. Like he was a great father. He was a great family man. He was a great friend. And it's so random too. Like, it's like, all right, I'm going to see like the lead singer of the Counting Crows, Allison Hannikin, was like all these random people all these random people are saying these great things. And the Allison Hannikin thing was funny because I was like, oh, right. He was in How I Met Your Mother, but she was like, I lived in Hollywood and I was his family's babysitter growing up, and what a great dad he was coming home, whatever time he came home, and still made sure he always played with the kids. Like, it was just, it helps, I can't imagine the pain his family's going through today and his close friends, but it helps us to kind of process this when we have these positive memories, with Norm Macdonald, you saw nothing but friends talking about how good of a friend he was to them, and same with Betty White. It just and again, unfortunately, I'm sure we will be on here in the next few months talking about someone who passed and being like, well, they're always going to have that memory they have. They're always going to have that issue they had. So
yeah, and it's funny. It's funny because I was, you and I often say, we said it with John Madden, we said it with Betty White, we've said it with a few of the entertainers that we've lost. You didn't hear anything bad. And it's kind of like Bob Saget was in front of his dirty jokes and dirty mind. You still don't hear anything bad, right? It's not like he was caught with a hooker when he passed away. Excuse me for saying that, but giving you an example.
But that's 1,000%. I expected to read 2 hookers and a pound of, Coke. And I'm like, and now I'm sitting here today going, that's 100%. I was like, because I think you put up a post right away of like, oh, well, this hits hard. He's such a great, perfect guy. And I was like, oh, I don't know if he is a great, perfect guy. And now I'm like, but again, like, is that just how good he was? By the way, I'm sure that he partied and had a good time and stuff like that.
Of
And,
course.
we're not talking about, we expect everyone to be perfect. Rather, it's just,
Yeah, yeah.
but he just, he didn't spend 6 months in prison. He didn't have a, I'm saying all this. This is like the big curse. I'm saying all this just tomorrow for our viewers to be like, oh no,
The
here you
side of
go.
Bob Saget you didn't
Yeah,
know, or
you didn't
something
know he
like
did
that.
this. You don't know he was involved in that vehicular homicide. Like, that
Oh, did you see the roast?
I'm sure I did. I know I did.
Brutal. All about sleeping with underage girls, and they were roasting him and stuff like
Oh
that.
my!
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
I'm
deter
sorry.
you, but I was
No,
like,
no, but no. You're just triggered me. Yeah, because it's all about it's all about just how horrible. But again, he's not. Like, that's what they do. They had to make things up. Like, that is again. If you still want to watch a roast, look on YouTube for the Bob Saget roast. It will not disappoint if you're into roasts. If you're not in the roast, then don't watch it at all. So,
proceed with caution. It is
yes,
a roast
right.
of a roast. No
It is.
mercy roast.
Yeah. Stamos stepped up. Everybody stepped up. That's an all timer. But again, he gives as good as he got. There's a great movie. When I say great, it's very niche. It's called The Aristocats, and it's a bunch of comedians and like a documentary telling a joke. It's one joke told over like an hour and a half. There's this famous joke called The Aristocats, and the idea is you could take a really long time telling it. And the quick premise is, a family, a mom, a dad, and their daughter and son go into a talent agent. They're like, "Hey, we've got an act. We want you to hire us." And the agent says, "Well, what do you do?" And then they just proceed for as long as you want to tell the joke to describe every gross thing in the world. Like, I F him while he F's me, and he puts a cow on top of my, like, just horrible, disgusting, inappropriate thing, you know. And then at the end, the agent's like, "That's insane. What do you call yourselves?" And they're like, "The Aristocats," like aristocrats, the aristocrats. It's like a very fancy name for, and like, but that joke really sums up Bob Saget. Like, he is just like believed in his shit. And again, I've never heard him telling offensive humor. I've no, when I say offensive, I mean like, he hasn't come out in the last few months of like, "Oh, you can't tell jokes in this climate," Again, no idea, no clue. Just, just sad to see.
Yeah, no, sad to see, and it's funny because I keep saying it's funny, guys. It's
Yeah,
funny
right. No,
because
it's not funny.
It's funny because Bob Saget.
Right.
But I remember vividly. I was working at this barbecue shop, and I was like 21, 22, and it maybe so. This is like circa 2009, 2010. Maybe that's when it started to really come out that Bob Saget wasn't like, because remember, listen, Danny Tanner was corny jokes, right? Like, you would chuckle, but you
Yeah.
would be like, "Oh man, you're so corny." Like, your jokes just like fall flat. But he was a great dad. He played the role well. But I think around that time was when we started to see like, oh man, like Bob Saget is. I remember my boss was telling me like he was trying to describe a joke about that Bob Saget was telling him was something about being with a hooker and AIDS, and I was like, wait, Bob Saget, that like Danny Tanner, America's Funny. He's like, yeah, he's brutal. But Jodie Sweetin posted, and she actually said that Bob Saget would call anybody who he felt like he offended if they didn't laugh at the joke, and apologize profusely for like 15 or 20 minutes. So he tried to find that balance, I guess. There was a comedian, a few of them that was it the Laugh Factory? They
Sure.
were the ABC News caught them, or whomever caught them after an event right after Bob Saget had passed, and one of them had said that he and Bob Saget had a virtual event. Said comedian who was talking about Bob Saget, his brother died like the day before, and when they went live, Bob's opening joke was, "Did your brother die just so he could get out of doing this event for us?" Right, like Bob Saget, typical Bob Saget joke. But the comedian went on to say that Bob Saget is apparently also part of the late sibling club. Apparently, Bob Saget lost both of his sisters through the years.
He lost his sister, and he lost one sister. Was a twin, lost in childbirth.
Okay.
But, yeah. So
the comedian was like, Bob has a right to say that joke, but
right,
just an example
right.
of who, like Bob, like no mercy, just, and I'm sure everybody kind of chuckled because people like are attracted to dark humor at times, right? I'm guilty of it. I'm sure everybody
Yeah,
else is. And
absolutely.
that was just one example of it.
Yeah, so something I learned today, and we'll do our little bit of our history of Bob Saget. Something I learned today, so I'm not speaking for Ryan, but he's Philadelphia born and raised.
Yes, I learned that too. That's
Just
nuts.
I'm like, what have I been doing? But again, like it's one of those things. Listening to WMMR this morning, and they talk about it, like they were like, oh, he was on all the time. He came on, and every time, and so he won a contest on 93.3 WMMR like 35, 40 years ago, like a stand-up contest. Like his big break was winning this contest, like a radio contest in Philly. So I was like, how have I just not, because usually like a Jersey thing is like, everybody's from Jersey. Like it's like a point of pride. And for the most part, Philly people are not that dissimilar. So I was like, I just must have never really paid attention. But again, he came into our, and again, this is what he considered. He came literally into our living rooms, as they would call it, because we would see him on Friday nights on Full House, and then we would see him every Sunday on America's Funniest Videos, which I give him all the credit in the world. America's Funniest Videos was a massive, massive success, And another thing I think I knew, but I relearned today, he did all the talking during the thing. Like he did the talking over the videos.
I was just about to say to you, because I was going to see if you actually said it. I had found that out years ago, and I was like, I bet you Richard touches on this point. Not that I think I know you were like that or anything, but
I don't want you thinking you know me like that.
But I'm sure you understand the challenge, like to do the voiceovers and what he's actually saying for all of these videos, because in the grand scheme of things, this half an hour show, it's like 5-second long videos, right? Not easy by any means. People always underestimate the skill it takes to be a comedian, and he just owned it for years.
Right, he owned it and again, it's as someone who regularly spends hours on TikTok, like it's like America's Funniest Videos and what he was doing, while he doesn't get all the credit in the world for it, but like he played, like that's what I'm doing. I'm sitting here watching America's Home Videos cut into little 30-second segments on my TikTok, and again, all the time, people will show a video of like a cat, or they'll show a video of the twins, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to take your you better not take my lollipop," right? And that's all he did. It wasn't groundbreaking humor. It was just like a squirrel gets on a tricycle, and it's like, "Hey, what is this? Oh, whoa, we're going too fast."
Exactly.
It was just goofy enough, and it worked because it was something you could put on. I have a coworker who's like, we still watch it every Sunday. Like and I'm just like, with Alfonso Ribeiro now as the host, but it is just like, that's what the internet is us watching, is watching other people's videos, because,
that's a great way to put it.
Because we grew up, I was a little older, but yeah, the 90s and basically for 30 years straight now, it's been on. It's something that, and we were laughing today. We talked a lot about him in school. It was fun. It was fun. Again, like you said, funny, because to the kids, it's a little kick in the old person stomach. He's from Fuller House. Like to the kids, he's from Fuller House.
Yeah.
The kids who've heard of him, they knew he was from Fuller House. A random kid here or there knew that he was from America's Funniest Video or something. But just sitting there with the kids going like, you don't even understand what we're talking about when we say someone used to take a padded envelope, put a videotape inside of it, and mail it out to California. And then I'm like,
no guarantee.
Right. With no guarantee. With nothing. Yeah, no clue. So, and we were also talking about, like, in the early 90s, it wasn't like the equipment was around that you were like, oh, I'm going to transfer this 30 seconds of video on. You probably sent your entire video with like, fast forward to this part or something on it. Like,
they hear you going, damn it, Danny, what the like just start flipping out on the video.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like when you think about it, like, yeah, you just sent your video, and then some poor schlupp in Los Angeles. I would love to see a documentary with those guys. Like, you have no idea. We'd have to put a video in. We'd have to hope it would, and then it was, but yeah, that is not this again. And I know it's always easy 2020 hindsight and stuff. I don't believe it's the hit it is if he's not as likable of a person. Have you ever? Sorry, I'm jumping. But most people besides American Sponge Video know him as the dad, Danny Tanner, on Full House. I would recommend to anyone who has the chance and the free time, YouTube original Full House pilot, where they had a different Danny Tanner.
I saw that today.
Weird. You know, it is a couple of times on YouTube. They'll have like a show the scene with the original guy and then re-show the scene with Bob Saget, and you see the difference. Like, oh wow, like the one, it's the same exact jokes. Like Uncle Jesse and Uncle Joey, Dave Coulier, they deliver the same kind of.
Sorry, Dave.
That's right. They deliver the lines the same way, the same energy, but it's just he had that something, and he was perfect for that role. Glad he got to do it again in Fuller House, and yeah, just a real. With these tribute shows, it's just like it sucks because the ending of every sentence has to be like, and he's gone, you know, like
he's gone.
And he's gone. Yeah.
And it's true. And like I said, I'm still like processing this one even today. Like as I was driving to Costco, I was like, let me type in Everywhere You Look. And, there's different renditions now. But and this is something I'm going to actually use this to ask you a question because I think you can appreciate it. And also I always appreciate your input. We should start a podcast on that note, by the way, and see where things go. I actually, even connecting this to Spider-Man without starting a whole nother podcast, I fear that some of the kids today, if not all of the kids today, my daughter included, Alexis and Jade and the boys, as they get older, maybe things will change, won't have these nostalgia explosions or potential like we did. What do you think?
Yeah, no, they won't. And it really is an entire other podcast. You touched on it earlier. It is something that I my students probably go, Mr. Mazza talks about this all the time. I talk about them all the time. Like they don't have appointment television. They don't have, they watch something every week, they watch Cobra Kai, but they watch Cobra Kai in 2 days.
Right. And then done.
Right. And so to them, and I even see it a little bit with like, I watched Ted Lasso and I watched it over the course of a week. I'm watching Cobra Kai now, watching it, I'm not getting that same kind of like, oh, this is that actor. And a week from now, I'm going to watch like Yellowstone is one of the ones where the SVUs where we watch them every week, so you're like, oh, yeah, this is what this, you kind of have that wait too, where you wait every week to watch it. With the Marvel series, you kind of get that nice wait. That's the closest they come to it. Like these kids who might be watching some of the Marvel shows, like you just don't have that. And they're not watching TV. They're just not watching. First off, they're rarely watching it in front of a TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're just watching YouTube videos, or they're watching every video of their favorite YouTube person, or they're watching The Office, whereas I grew up and Happy Days was on repeats. You grew up and Full House was on repeats, and you watched it when you got home, it was on at 4 and 5 on the local, on channel 17, you watch an hour of it a day, these kids will be finishing The Office in 6 weeks. So,
and I think that's maybe going to be part of the problem if we're using that term problem, because I didn't care that it was a rerun. And that's what I was trying to connect the cable guy line to was, he goes, somebody has to kill the babysitter. Not that my parents neglected me or anything like that, but those 2 hours of reruns bought my parents time. I enjoyed them. It was a way for everybody to decompress and kind of get ready for the night and the next day. And right now it's just like, oh, I watched that already on Netflix. You know what I mean? And let me go to Prime Video, see if something, there's a lot of options, right? So you don't really have the opportunity to connect unless you so choose, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's funny. I wanted to, what'd you say?
I'm looking at Tim's comment. Maybe they're watching their friend's podcast.
Right. Yeah. Maybe they don't have cable. Maybe they don't have cable at their house and they just watch.
That's true. Yeah.
Tim's like, I've seen you guys grow over the course of this. Sorry. So I've lost my train of thought, Tim. You've amused me. You've amused me so much, but
nostalgia and babysitters.
Yeah, nostalgia. But anyway, I was going to say that show me the parent that hasn't used TV as a babysitter.
Oh yeah.
And and right, and I'll show you a parent that, while they might be better at certain things, they're exhausted. Like there's no like that's what you have to do sometimes. Like, and again, the parent all salutes to the parent who's like, no, I don't let them have the screen time. I'll sit and play with them for the half an hour. Like, yeah, but you also passed out on the couch. You also passed out, like, and it is the great babysitter. It's a shame that it's that way. But it's just so interesting. I'm so curious in 20 years when we do our, it's been 20 years since Bob Saget passed, retrospective, just to see what the kids are doing, and it won't be that it won't. I think that's one thing I've learned is, what was the name of that thing that failed a couple of years ago? It was all over the Super Bowl. Like, it was about 2 years ago. I'm going to call it. It wasn't Tubi. It had a name like, and it was all going to be like 10-minute shows at the longest.
Vine?
It wasn't Vine.
You remember Vine?
I do. I mean, it's became TikTok eventually.
Yeah, yeah. Quibi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Tim, you got to come on the podcast soon. Yeah,
just listen. Why don't you just? You can become our Quibi. Quibi it is. So,
Tim's the intern.
All over spending $1 billion during the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They said, "Hey, this is one of my favorite stories, and it should be another podcast." January 2020, Quibi's coming out in a couple months. We know that you don't digest your TV in the way you used to. You watch 10 minutes on the train. You watch 10 minutes while you're waiting for your boss to come in for a meeting. You watch 10 minutes on the Stairmaster. So we're going to take an hour-long TV show. We're going to cut it up into 10-minute segments. And, we're going to get, that's how you're going to watch TV now. You're going to watch it in 10-minute Quibis, like, boom. Just, okay. I'm like, that's going to be awesome. That's going to be really cool.
I'm excited. I remember.
Because people don't have the time. People aren't just sitting in their houses for hours and hours and hours on it.
And I was also taking the subway every day.
Yeah.
So I was like,
no, you would have been all over Quibi and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then they said, you're not taking the subway anymore, Ryan. You're staying home. Like, you're staying home.
When it hit COVID.
Yeah. Just hit when COVID happened. And again, I brought up that story because any time anyone tries to write about the future, it's like, oh, I've got to hit the brain chip in my thing to access my TV watching, and then the person's just sitting there and where the glasses have the. I don't think we're going to get there. I don't think Axe and James are going to be there in 20 years going like, God, my processor chip isn't getting that channel. And James is getting, I don't think we're going to be there, but
I gotta take a personal day. I gotta get my chip.
Right.
Calibrated.
Hey, somebody can hijack my chip. I can get all the TV shows and movies, even if they're
jailbreak
movies. Yeah, right. They're going to jailbreak my chip. I don't think that we're going to ever get to that craziness, but I do think we are far removed from the time of like Henry Winkler is the Fonz, Bob Saget is Danny Tanner, and they become these massive stars. I just don't see it because just not enough,
And look, and let me be selfish for a second, real quick, because I think about this.
Yeah, you should be allowed to.
Alexis loves Cobra Kai.
Mm-hmm.
Your generation gave us Kreese, gave us Daniel, gave us Miyagi, right? And I'm not knocking the whole it's recycled this and that, but it kind of, I'm bringing it back to my point of that. I'm curious to see what James, Jade, and Alexis a little bit older, James, Jade, and Axe are attached to. Who's your Danny Tanner? Who's your Daniel? Who's your Kreese? Right?
What's that guy's name? Lemonhead? Melonhead?
Cucumber melon, I call him, but Cocoa Melon.
Cocoa Melon, yeah, right. Like in 20 years, they're like, hey, they're doing a thing where Cocoa Melon's kids are going to college. And
it's a different voice actor.
Right. First off, they're right. And like, no, Cocoa Melon is got to move out of his parents' house. They're doing an old reboot. But again, that's the thing. It'll be really curious to see, like, because we have this unending wave of nostalgia you can keep doing. Like if they announce tomorrow, they're like, oh, hey, Gremlins. I think they are doing another Gremlins. They are doing another Goonies. They are doing, like Goonies kids going on an adventure. And it's like crazy.
You're young enough. I'm not going to say old enough. You're young enough. Did you see Transformers becoming a freaking Michael Bay film when you first saw the cartoon or the toys?
No. because I'm young enough that another podcast, the comic book conventions of the late 90s, early 2000s, before YouTube and the internet and all this digital media, there were 10 booths at every show that sold bootleg DVDs. And
Right,
one
right,
of the
right.
biggest things you did was you showed like, well, hey, you showed like unreleased things or failed pilots and stuff like that.
Okay.
And but Transformers the movie was always one they showed because it was like, well, it's not out on DVD yet, or it's not available, widestream, and you know, and it's funny, like I should have been, I wasn't at the time. I just remember thinking, okay, that's something. Like people were nuts for it, and it's crazy to think like Michael Bay got that sold. They figured it out. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, but again, if he had gone with He-Man 15 years ago instead of Transformers, would it have been the same hit? If it was done well, because that first Transformers is solid enough.
Oh
Is
man, I
this you
love that
trying to
first
get
one.
a Full House Transformers crossover?
Yo, that would be nuts. But like, and that just goes. Richard and I are really trying not to start another podcast here.
Yeah,
Uh,
we did a good job.
I was 8 or 10. Beast Wars came out. Now they saw the kill, right, and they're coming in for it. And listen, I'm already on board. Ron Perlman as Optimus Prime as the gorilla one. Give it to me. Like I'm
Mhm.
just take my
Yeah,
money. I'm already ready to go.
that's perfect casting. Yeah. So as Danny Tanner, you were a talk show host, Danny Tanner. So I'm sure Bob Saget would appreciate. We had to do different topics today, um, so I don't want to stay on too much longer for you, bud. But do we do both of? Do we do our Snorlax is trending topic, or do we? You know what? Let me do, or we do our comment section of the week. I'm gonna do the. I love that pretended like I was asking you a question. Hey, which one should we do? Or you know what? I'm gonna do both of them. Thanks for your input, Ryan. I really appreciate it.
Rocket, you saw it on Tomorrow the Babysitters did, right? We're with you, mom. Rock and roll.
You have been killing babysitters this entire podcast.
I have.
That's
We're also nobody quit on us, Brianna. We still need you to
yeah. I
come
was gonna
watch
say
Red
right.
tomorrow.
We were 100% supporting all the babysitters, whoever's watching, keeping you guys sane. All right, so I'll go with the. I was gonna say both of these conversations can turn a little heavy, but comment section of the week, which Shanna brought to. Sorry, Dr. Mom just made me laugh. Comment
Yeah,
section of the week
ask him
is
3 questions in one.
like,
Hi, mom. Love you.
yeah. So Shanna brought this to my attention, and then I did some research. So anytime that current Jeopardy champion Amy Schneider, anytime there's an article about her accomplishments, anytime that there's CNN or MSNBC or whoever shares something like, first women over $1 million, longest champion, blah blah blah, the comment sections just erupt with hate and anger. She's not a woman. Don't call her a woman. And doing the deep dive before the show today, like there are people who actually take their time to be like, this is a really smart person, but don't call him a woman. Yes, I genuinely believe that Amy is a really intelligent person, but don't call like why are you even wasting your time complimenting her smarts, but you're not willing to say her?
What was your point, buddy? What was
Yeah,
your
right.
point?
Like what was your
Are
and
you
then,
like
yeah,
me? Like, do you respond and then delete
I
because you don't want to get dragged into it? I do that.
I was gonna say not that much because I hover over and I'm like, what am I gonna add to this conversation? Um, and I sometimes I double check to make sure I'm reading it correctly. Um, but it's just like, you know what? So really, like that you're that self-involved, you're that angry that you're gonna get into this comment section, like so frustrating. And again, like sometimes these are lighthearted, like like people commenting on random things, like but this is just really depressing. So on what might be a lighter hearted story, um I saw that the word Snorlax was trending on Twitter, and I will confess I didn't know. I was blanking on what a Snorlax was, and for our audience who might not know, which I'm sure they all do, Snorlax is a Pokemon character. He's a big bulbous kind of chubby Pokemon character. Um, So it's like, okay, oh, he's a Pokemon character, right?
Not
What
very
fun turn?
intimidating.
Yeah, right. What fun turn can this take? 2, I believe, L.A. police officers.
Sounds about right.
Yes, 2 L.A. police officers ignored a call to respond to a robbery in progress, instead deciding to spend 20 minutes chasing down some Snorlax that they were finding on their Pokemon Go app. In this era of body cam and dashboard cam,
and straight up tracking chips.
Right. They they had to go into their disciplinary hearings and listen to and as a fan of a good con, as a fan of a good clever lie, like they did try to spin it as, oh, we were just talking about it. Like we were talking about it. We were talking about the popularity of the game. My partner, he was reading text messages from a friend who was talking about it. Like, and it was just so funny because at the end it's like, independent examiners determined this was a lie. Like this was not, this was not true. So, right. So, but it was just like, and what decided to make me bring this up on the show today was like people's comments on Twitter were like, so police have committed crimes and kept their jobs. Policemen have done, made certain mistakes and have kept their jobs. But these two lost their jobs because they, this is what it finally took. This is where America put down the police union was like, we can't help you. If you had right. If you had slept with a woman. Yeah, right, go ahead.
I gotta say my comment that's going to get us canceled, right? And I think I can say it in the way that you and listeners or viewers won't understand. You know how there's always the if he or she was comment. Was there any if it was a Charizard, he wouldn't have even gotten charged.
That's really good. Sorry. Yeah, no, there was not, right. Because right. I think that's the problem. It was the Snorlax and they had
caught the Snorlax, right.
The
Charizard, they would have ignored it.
Right. They were like, well, listen, that was heroic. That was heroic.
Grass would have gotten it.
Right. No, you wasted 20 minutes of your day going after a Snorlax. Which, again, any Pokemon Go fans out there, let me know if that's a particularly hard one to catch. Or, again, I got caught up in Pokemon Go. Like Shanna, I used to drive Shanna around town so she could catch them.
It was fun.
It was fun. It was fun for a minute, and
it was fun for a hot minute, yeah.
And then people were like, "We don't want random people in our neighborhood or like our local
it was
church."
Flocks, remember? It was like
it was Flocks to people.
What's the thing? What do you call it? Flash mob. Like it was flash mob about like.
It was like flash mobs, yeah.
Yeah.
I was walking through Philly a couple months after it started, and I just remember seeing like 30. It's not too far from your work. Like there's a little church, and there's several churches, but one of the churches near your work, and I just remember seeing like 40 people, and I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And they were all just out with their phones. They're like, "Oh, he's over here. Move over here more." They were all catching him. So, yeah, it was what it was. So I was going to talk a little bit about Golden Globes. Did you watch the Golden Globes last night?
Could I have?
You could not have. So that was good.
Son of a bitch.
That was good. That was great. You could not have, which I think takes a little bit of the, of the fun of it away. So like, they didn't stream. No one independently streamed them. They just announced the winner. I got to ask you
something real quick.
Release it
I didn't look this up.
Twitter.
Was that a last minute call?
No, they've known for a while. I want to believe, from my knowledge I'm making up right now, that if CBS had called them 2 weeks ago, if TNT had called them 4 weeks ago and said we'll air it, but also it couldn't have been a last minute call because you would have had to book the facility to host the people.
Oh, they didn't do anything. They didn't
do anything. No, they just
damn.
had a. So, yeah.
Who watched the final last Dexter New Blood? I didn't, but don't say anything because Monica and I are teetering between Dexter and Yellowstone to binge.
What have you done any Yellowstone?
None. We're trying to figure out what to get into because January and February are slow for banquets.
Yeah, it's quicker to bit. It's Yellowstone's 40 episodes. So,
but what's his name? Oh my god, I'm drawing a blank. Dexter.
Michael C. Hall.
Michael C. Hall. We watched him in an absolutely terrible movie, which I enjoyed. Monica couldn't even stomach it. Literally, she was about to throw up. Gamer, and Gerard Butler and Michael C. Hall. Really
Okay.
weird. Like, here's Total Recall weird, and then
Okay.
here's
Yes.
Gamer weird.
Right.
And Monica was literally just like, turn it off. I was like, no, we gotta finish it. He was hilarious in it, genius, and I think that's kind of what. But then also, I like Kevin Costner in anything. You're watching Yellowstone. People keep showing me this tough looking cowboy with a black jacket and a hat where I feel like I could get behind. Yeah, Rick. I feel like I could get behind him. So still kind of here, but probably leaning towards Yellowstone.
Yeah, I mean, and when you say Dexter, you mean you need to watch everything?
I got to go all the way back, brother.
Yeah. I mean, listen. I mean, the stupid answer is both, but yeah. I mean, Dexter first 4 seasons are phenomenal. I'm hearing good things about the newest season, so. But I'm forgetting that. And I'll tell you, if Shanna's saying Yellowstone, she literally, like, Dexter was her ringtone for a couple years. So
yeah. Should I be worried that Dr. Mom is leaning towards Dexter? Mom, do you have any skeletons in the closet? Anything you want to tell us about?
But you listen. I'm not sure why we're not. I probably should. Everyone else, stop listening to what I'm going to tell Ryan. But it's not a bad, like, Dr. Mom, a show about a Dr. Mom who's like a lawyer and a mom. Like, so she could kill the person. Like, because she's a doctor who's, I know she's not that kind of doctor, but for this idea, but then also she's the lawyer who can, like, constantly fight, get people off. Maybe there's a lot, like, she knows the law, she knows how to circumvent the law. And
if anybody's listening who's a producer or writer, we're going to catch you. We're going to sue you if you take our idea.
Yeah.
There's one detective who's always after her. So it never gets to court. It's just always like he or she's trailing her. Like, doctor, how are you going to get yourself out of this one?
Hey, what's a great sign that I can get us syndicated? Because I already know how to jump the shark, because the detective and Dr. Mom fall in love at some point. So
see, that's like season 3, right?
Right. Yeah, she can commit no, but that's the thing. I think I think that's the thing. Maybe she's trained other serial killers. She knows how to, she can get them released. Like, I think they've made a healthy, and the police officer that's her next door neighbor. That's,
what
something.
I keep freaking out.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was saying something Dexter did well, which I think some people might say was frustrating, was they did a really good job, especially the first few years. And they got a little ridiculous of, like, how could they not know his secret? Like, the cop is right, like the other, like, and you were just like, he's going to get caught, and he wouldn't get caught somehow. Like, something would happen, they did a really good job with that suspense. Yellowstone, I think Yellowstone's a little less intense. It's still a little, and I think it'll be easier to get through.
Literally doesn't have facial expressions.
No, he doesn't.
I love him, by the way.
I will wait. I will reserve till you actually watch it, because it's a fascinating discussion about, which I'm sure Sons of Anarchy, some of these shows, like Shanna was saying the other day, like, you have this thing of anti-heroes with Sons of Anarchy, Sopranos, where, like, you're supposed to be cheering for the bad guy. Like, there's nothing good about Tony Soprano. Like, he does nothing good. The Sons of Anarchy people are not good people, but
at all, ever.
But they do these little storylines where, like, oh, look, he helped that mom out who was having a hard time with her groceries. Like, yeah, but he killed 3 people because they stepped on his foot a week earlier,
Yellowstone is on my list, but I'm leery after Shanna recommended Sons of Anarchy so hard, and I hated it. Let me back up Tim Moray.
And it might be for that exact reason. Yellowstone is, I think Yellowstone is better than Sons of Anarchy, but go ahead, Ryan.
Let me back up Tim Moray here. Watch Sons of Anarchy the day it dropped, from promo to first episode. We're talking, didn't DVR it, made sure I was home in time because I didn't have an important job or wife or anything like that. Fell off season 4 hardcore. I couldn't even tell you what happened after that.
Did they go to Ireland? Did they already go to Ireland? When did they go to Ireland?
No, maybe it was season 3 then, but I definitely fell off hardcore to back up what Tim's saying. I don't know how it ended, but I did fall off. I was real into it hardcore to begin with. But I got to ask you a random question here, and it drives Monica nuts. So Axe, my son, is he's brutal. He fights his sister. She usually wins. Fights his brother. It just doesn't take no for an answer. Throws things, hits things. I keep telling Monica, we have lined up the Netflix documentary perfectly. It just says Axe the X's will be 2 axes. Or I mean,
Mm-hmm.
am I wrong here?
Yeah.
Like, we've
No, you're
lined
not
it up
wrong even a little
perfectly.
bit. Yeah. Yeah. And his I mean, it's been since they were born. You've known that you're raising one police officer, you're raising one, criminal, and
One
just
Dexter.
yeah. But here's the thing: the twist is I think that's what the thing. The twist is going to be that Axe is the cop.
And his twin brothers onto him.
And then no, but I'm saying Axe is the cop, and James.
Oh, okay.
We're all like, oh, James is going to be the good guy. Axe is going to go. He's going to go to military school in a couple of years when you have to send him there, and he's going to get the discipline he needs because his father won't discipline. His father's like, so
Dad was always working.
Yeah, Dad was always working.
Put his podcast before parenting.
I could hear Mom on the computer teaching other kids Spanish. I had a lot going on.
They brought me think of something.
Yeah.
Without throwing a horn on the podcast, that's going to be a damn premise in a couple of years, isn't it? The pandemic triggered so and so. No matter what the story is, it was during the pandemic. It was 2021. We were a year into the whatever the case.
No, it is. Yeah, and I'm trying to say this without judgment, because watching Cobra Kai, and I'm going to try to say this without spoiling it, but there is a, I can say this because it happens pretty quickly in the show when you watch it. Like, one of the students who joins Cobra Kai is a student with, like, he had a lip, he had his lip surgery to fix it, and he had and he is just brutally bullied, just horrendously horrible. You would go home crying every night if this was how you were treated. Like,
yeah.
And his evolution over the course, and like, and we've done that now in Hollywood. I've talked about it many times in this, where, like, we give the bad. So I guess this is a spoiler. We give the bad guy a reason that they're bad, and
right.
So
right,
that
right,
being said, yeah, will that be what happens now? Like, like, kids are in high school, or kids aren't getting into the college they want to, and does it become the pandemic's fault? Like, is that what's happening?
So much premise, like, so many storylines.
It's like, I would have gotten that scholarship for football, but the pandemic threw off our season, and I would have gotten that. Hey, we all saw what the pandemic did. Some of us used our time during the pandemic, and some of us didn't. So
it's going to be
it's all about family. Look at that, Shannon nailed it. It's all about family.
And you called it without starting a whole other podcast. Our first episode, Richard and I did. I don't know if he remembers this. Apparently, they update the comics to reflect current events every 5 or 10 years. We anticipate Iron Man having a chest problem because he caught COVID and COVID complications, and he had to get
right. Billionaire Tony Stark's could do almost anything with his money except survive COVID. COVID complications have caused him to be in cardiac arrest. He can't breathe. One night when the power goes out at the hospital that he's staying in, like, he springs together some stuff. He builds a machine that helps him breathe. Yeah. And then he just kind of, and then he's like, oh, with the power in this, I could do,
His nurse, Pepper Potts, assists.
Yes, right. His nurse, right. His attending, the Candy Striper. It's good. It's good stuff. Listen, people, it's good stuff. Watch any of our shows. They're going to go right to Quibi. Dr. Mom, the Killer. I don't know. We don't have a title for that one. So yeah, I was thinking of, like, the tagline, like, she puts him behind bars and then she gets him off. That doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound.
I've always said the doctor will see you now.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
One thing I want to say as we get to the end, just because I know you and I appreciate him a lot. Andrew Garfield won Golden Globe for Best Actor. Totally freaking deserved. What do you think?
Yeah, totally deserved. I'm actually really excited because most of the people who won were things Shannon and I saw, which is kind of like, we always
usually backtracking. Like, you told me.
Yeah, usually it's like, oh, that stinks, but, like, we saw, like the guy from the older man from Suicide Squad, from Squid Game. He won.
The meme guy, the guy that became a meme.
Yeah, the older man from Squid Game. He won for Best Supporting Actor.
Will Smith
West Side
for that.
Will Smith won, which that's the only one we haven't seen. Will Smith won.
Is it out?
It was on HBO Max.
Gotta watch it then.
Yeah, I don't think it's on. But we Powered the Dog was the best movie. Nicole Kidman and Being the Ricardos. if you love I Love Lucy growing up, definitely check out Being the Ricardos.
Oh, that
Will
one was
Smith.
actually. I thought that was a TV show. I'm not paying attention, bro.
Yep. Nope. Yep. It's a
Here,
yeah.
here on the
Yep.
podcast about pop culture, I wasn't paying
Yeah. Nope.
attention that was actually a film.
It is again when it ties in with all of our earlier discussions when you talk about how kids are kind of growing up and viewing things differently. Like, yeah, they're on Amazon Prime, they're on Netflix. Like a lot of these movies are, you don't have to go to the movie theater to see. Power of the Dog was on Netflix. Being the Ricardos was on Amazon Prime. If we had paid attention, we would have watched King Richard on HBO Max a couple weeks ago. West Side Story won for best motion picture, musical, or comedy, and then Rachel Zegler won for best actress in West Side Story. Andrew Garfield, best actor in Tick Tick Boom.
I love that movie.
Has Encanto made it to the to your house yet?
Yes, and I did post about it the other day because Alexis, she's the oldest sister,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
one of the songs is. Did you see it yet?
I love it. Yeah. I've seen it several times.
So she looked at me and she went, "Give it to your sister. Your sister is older." And I was like, "Yes, you're the oldest.
Yeah.
I've employed you to babysit tonight." But it's played a few times. Very good. Alexis is going to use that song on us, the parents, all the time because she's the oldest of like 7. But a very well done movie. I enjoyed it a lot. I know Monica and the kids did too.
And the last one. Go ahead.
No, you go.
No, last one because I know you're always a huge fan of this. Hans Zimmer won for best score.
Don't say Tenet.
For Dune.
Oh, I heard the score was very good. I have heard nothing but bad things about Tenet, so I was
this is one where I'm going to count on Shanna to remember. I think we were in New York. I think we were in New York and Tenet was on, and it is so like hard to follow, beyond impossible to follow. Like, and again, I'm totally here for you, Christopher Nolan. I'm totally here for the idea of like you develop some sort of ability that lets you go backwards and but
you're not a Robert Pattinson hater.
No, yeah, I liked him. I liked him in that. I liked John Washington in it. Like, I liked the acting, but it was hella because you're like, wait, are they in the present? So. All right, that's what I have to do because I'll be honest. I was half watching and didn't watch it all the way through. But it was like there was some. Again, I grew up watching Doctor Who. That's where I get my time travel from. So
yeah. Not like and.
Are you ready to do a whole hour on Doctor Who?
Not yet. But here's what I'm gonna say as we head towards the end. Just
look, Tenet is spelled the same forward and backwards. So people had the ability to go forward and backward through time. So what would happen is they would be going forward. You sat there. You were next to me watching the movie, Shanna, with Robert Pattinson and all the crashes. Yeah, it was like Wibbly, except so you'd be going forward in time and you would see like bullet holes in the wall, and then like a blood stain, but you wouldn't see a body and you'd be like, what's going on here? And that's because the other people were coming backwards through time, killing the person who was about to sabotage you and kill you, so you could see like it was kind of trippy, but it was tougher for me to follow. With my ADHD, I could not keep focus.
Here's what I'm gonna say as we head towards the end of this podcast, and it's a random thought, and it's a whole other podcast. My friend Grayson, who was on the podcast with us, who Richard who knows, we've had this conversation on the side. Love Christopher Nolan, not just for Batman reasons. We're talking like Memento, we're talking Insomnia, just Christopher Nolan. Oh, damn, what was the one with Hugh Jackman? The Prestige.
The Prestige, yeah,
right. Just genius. But I told Grayson, I just really hope that Christopher Nolan's not so lost in his own head, and I mean this with all due respect, and it's like, dude, like I get that it makes sense in your head, but like the average crowd can't follow it. So you were going somewhere with Inception. It was a little like, yeah, I could follow it. Interstellar, like the same thing, but here Tenet, just like nobody can follow it. I need you to bring it back to normal human being, Earthling type standards. Random thought,
okay.
Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, we'll take it. All right. Well, we're about at the half hour mark now. So, Bob Saget, rest in peace.
Bob Saget, rest in peace. Richard and I probably would have taken tonight off and then regrouped next week. But hopefully next week or the next time we are together, it is under happier circumstances. But Bob Saget was definitely the reason we got together. So, Richard, if you don't have anything else, I put together a little montage in memory of Bob Saget.
Yep.
We'll see everybody next time. Take care.